Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's virtual peer exchange from USDA Rural Development, the eForms packaging process. Today's presentation is being recorded. This is a virtual learning roundtable, learn, ask, and observe. The Housing Assistance Council is a national nonprofit organization that helps build homes and communities across rural America. We offer training and technical assistance, a HAC loan fund, research and information, policy and advocacy. I will be a moderator today. My name is Vicki Stratton. I work for Housing Assistance Council as a housing specialist. Presenter today will be Ashley Nelson. She is with the Single Family Housing Direct Loan Origination Branch out of USDA Rural Development. Lacey Walters is with Universal Housing from Russellville, Arkansas, and she is a 502 direct loan application packager. Today we also have the goals and objectives. Today we will talk about and look at presenting the complete RD 410-4 application and for eForms processing, and we will show it being delivered to USDA. So you'll also increase your knowledge of the loan approval process and the steps for eForm processing. The eForm basics: who, what, when, why, where, and how. The who, the key players in this in doing the packaging are the certified packaging body, which is the organization that's going to process the applications. We also have an intermediary. So they also provide assistance to packagers, and they also perform quality assurance reviews on your packages. The other person that's a very big player in this part is the USDA Rural Development, who determines eligibility and underwrites. The packaging responsibilities. Stay informed of the USDA Section 502 and 504 regulations. You will market the USDA Section 502 and 504 program in your area. You'll also do the intake, eligibility, and assembly of a complete application, and then submit the loan packages. When do I use the eForms? They must be used for transmission of a Section 502 or 504 direct loan application packages by an intermediary or packagers with an approved opt-out in accordance with the opt-out MOU. They may be used for transmission of agency applications by an applicant, a non-certified packager, or self-help groups or others. Why should I use the forms? It reduces redundant data entry. It also allows documents to be moved into electronic agency files. It also supports RD loan origination application data, and then the reports are available. So like when you submit a report, submit an application, you're going to know the date it was submitted and what timeline it's pending. How do I use the eForms? You can browse limited forms with a user ID and a password. And where do I find eForms? So we've got the link there for you to find the eForms. So it's forms.sc.egov.usda.gov/eForms. And so at this point, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Lacey Walters, and she's going to demonstrate how to submit a loan package through the eAuth step walkthrough.
Thank you, Ms. Vicki. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so I'd like to share my screen. Okay, and here's that site that Ms. Vicki mentioned. I might suggest bookmarking that just to make it easy if this is going to be something that you're doing on a regular basis. So if you have not ever created a login, what you'll want to do is go right here to this register button, and it'll have a process where you can verify your identity and it will create your login information. So since we've already done that process, you can see I've already entered the user ID and the password. And so you'll just want to go to login right there. Okay, And so you can see it brings up all the menu tabs right over here, and we'll be using a few of these today. So first thing, it's got us in the Forms section, Browse Forms. So the one that we will like to use is going to be the 410-4. You could also type in the keywords, oh, excuse me, 4, there we go. You could also type in keywords if you're not sure of the form number, anything like that. But once you have something typed into one of those boxes, you'll want to hit search. And there's actually two options as far as using the 410-4 form. You can either fill it out online. I prefer to download a copy, and that way I can have multiple copies for, you know, for each client. I can be working on them kind of in process, save it and close it, come back to it, complete what's not been completed. So either way, what you'll want to do first is click on this little RD4104 and it will download for you. You save it wherever is good for you. And since I've already downloaded it, I've saved it for my particular client, I've completed it. What you'll want to do next is import external form, because once it's saved on your computer, it's called an external form. So now that we're in this little menu tab here, you'll want to choose File. See, this would be my client file with all their supporting documents, everything I've been working on so far. But the form that we'll want to use is this one right here, 410-4. I want to give it a name. It's kind of partially uploaded it here. It's got it kind of in the doc. I want to give it a name. Typically, I like to use just the applicant's last name, but you can do whatever helps you keep it organized. And so once it has its name, we've chosen the file already, you'll go to Add. Okay, and then here's my new one, but you can see all the ones that have been uploaded before. And you can see it's automatically crossed us over into the Saved Forms tab. And you can see the dates they've been uploaded. If you realize you uploaded the wrong thing, you can always delete it over here. Otherwise, it'll keep them saved in this tab. So then we are ready to create a package. It'll be just one step up right here. Okay, we'll want to do custom package. All right, and then here are packages to choose from. You can see it's the same list that was over in saved forms, excuse me. But the one we're going to work with today is going to be this one right here. You can click it. The screen will do a little refresh kind of thing. So once that's fine, you'll see that it's selected there, and you'll hit continue. Okay. And then here's where you're going to name your entire package, which the whole package will be that 410-4 that was uploaded and all the supporting documents that need to go with it. So this will be our package name, and make sure that that has rural development selected for your agency, and we're ready to create the package. Okay. And this is kind of the same setup, but this is packages rather than the individual forms. So you can see these are some previous packages that have been made, but here's our one that we're working with today. So next thing you want to do is go to this little button. If you hover over it, you can see that it says submit. So that's the one we'll want. All right, and here's where you can select your servicing center. Dependent on where your applicant is or what area is applicable for them, you'll want to be sure that it's going to the right servicing center. These servicing centers you see here are ones that we've used before, so it'll save it for you. So if you're submitting to the same one over and over and over, it'll always be right here. You can just hit select, and it's easy that way. Now, if you're needing to search for a new one, or you want to see what the selections are, you can go down to the map here, select on whichever state you want. It'll start narrowing it down for you until you see the right servicing center. But for today, we're going to use the Knoxville Service Center, Knoxville, Tennessee. We'll hit select. Okay, and see, here is that same form that we uploaded for Mr. What's his name. So that's automatically going to be the start of your package, and then your supporting documents will be built on top of that. So what you'll want to do when you're ready to add your supporting documents, your proof of income, things like that, will have to be with the application itself, you'll want to go to add. And if you're not familiar with the USDA Rural Development stacking order, this is where you'll want to upload them in a certain order, which I believe Miss Ashley could expound on the stacking order a little bit more, but this is just something that you want to keep in mind when you're going to select your files. So you'll want to go to choose file. It'll bring up your files on your computer. Let's see. Let's say we're ready to upload proof of household income. Just as a little trick, because it will need a description, I like to highlight what I've already named the file. You can, right click and copy, or you can do the Control C. So it'll copy that little text right there. But we're going to go ahead and open it, and you can kind of see it's got it docked right there. But here is where you'll want to add that description. I typically name it the exact same thing, unless you need to add a little bit more detail just for rural development to see. I typically just name it the same thing, just paste that same title right there, and then you'll go to add, and it'll begin to upload. And you will do that exact same step. You'll add, select it, give it a description, upload it over and over and over until you've got your complete list of supporting documents. Just for time's sake, I won't make you sit through watching me upload every single document, but that's the exact same process you'll do every time. Again, if you realize you've uploaded something by mistake, it wasn't the right one, you can always go back over here and delete it and then upload the correct one. You can see there's a little text box right here. If you would like to provide the Service Center with any comments about this package, please enter them here. That's not required, but sometimes it is helpful. You can type anything you want there. It gives you a lot of space to do it. But when you're ready, you've got all your supporting documents, you've got whatever note you want to put in it, you'll scroll down here. Again, it'll let you see what servicing center it's going to. But when you're ready, you can hit submit down there at the very bottom. Okay, and it's going to ask you more or less, are you sure? Here's where you might want to review your checklist and just make sure you've uploaded everything. But if you are, you can hit confirm. And we have successfully submitted a package. You can see it's got its name right here. Here is a confirmation number that you may want to keep for your records. At the same time that this screen comes up, it will issue out an email to the email address that you have your login information under. It'll pretty well say the same thing, just a little more abbreviated. It will not say the package name, but it will say the confirmation number. So if you keep physical files, you can print this page or you can print the email. Just know that the email is not going to have the package name. So you might just be careful not to get those mixed up. But this is how you know that it has in fact been submitted to Rural Development. And then you can see it's gone back to our save package screen, but since we've submitted the what's his name, it's no longer going to be here. But if you ever want to just double check, make super sure, you can always come down to this little outbox section, and I believe it will be under pending packages. Yep, right there. So you can see it's sitting there, ready to go, ready to be reviewed. After Rural Development takes over the application, it will then show up under the completed packages. So if you ever need that for reference or for reporting, just know it'll always be down there. But that is pretty much the entire process. I'd be glad to answer any questions if there are any. Miss Vicki, did you see any questions come up in the chat box?
I think we're kind of waiting for, if anyone has any questions, your chat box is to your right if you clicked on the top of the button. So you can type in if you have a question about the front side of this process, because the step 2 is we're going to look at it from the rural development side of it. So are there any questions that you think of that come up, for Lacey, as far as if there's something that is an application returned to you? Do you know that pretty much immediately?
Yes. As soon as Rural Development looks at the package, they can either approve it, or if there's something that's not quite right, needs to be resolved, they can return it and you can take care of any issues. But I know you at least get an email again as soon as the package is approved. And Ashley might be able to answer the question better than me as far as when it's returned, what kind of notification you get.
And what about is also, I think another step is making sure that you have everything in the 410 the application process. So yes. So that is a very important step, is to make sure that you have all the information in the application that's going to go forward, as well as the supporting documents.
Yes, ma'am. Correct. I think there was a question that might have just popped up.
Okay, this is a question from Liz, and it says, so do you upload a scanned copy of the check or money order, or does that need to be sent separately if your agency isn't pulling credit in-house?
I do. I don't know that that's 100% required. I do upload a copy of it to prove that we have collected it at least, but I then physically send it to our intermediaries. Now, this is in case of a 502. 504s, we do a little bit differently, but speaking about the 502s, I send a copy just to prove that we have in fact collected it. It's in hand, but then I physically send it to our intermediary and they take over from that part.
Okay, thank you, Lacey. Okay, at this point, we would like to switch over to Ashley Nelson, and she's going to do the electronic application processing walkthrough from Washington, D.C. So she's going to see this, hopefully, if technology is in our favor today, you're going to be able to see the same package that Lacey just sent to Ashley.
Okay, so I want to jump back to that question about the credit report fee. So Rural Development just I want to say 30 days ago, maybe as much as 45 days ago, has changed that process in that we can take the copy of that electronic check and process it electronically. Now, if it's a money order, you do have to submit that, to your RD office. But we can process, if it's a check, we can process off of that check in our system electronically now. So you wouldn't have to actually send a physical check to the office. That process is new. And like I said, the last 30, 45 days, and it's actually not updated fully in our handbook, but we have updated it in our notifications because we are currently using that. And that was in a process that come up in response to COVID. So it was pushed through just because of that to try to get keep things rolling. So I'm just going to move on to talk about the stacking order checklist. So she had mentioned this. The stacking order checklist is designed to streamline processing. It's a required for intermediaries, but we do suggest it and encourage all packagers to use it because it streamlines on our end as well as streamlines on your end as the packager. It aligns with our electronic customer file. So the information that you upload, we want you to upload like all the income grouped together. When you upload it in group together, then we can send it over to our electronic customer file easily. Instead of on your side, instead of uploading 20 documents or 15 documents or whatever, how many ever documents you have in your package, instead of uploading those separately, you can upload them and you're just uploading 7 grouped items versus a bunch of different documents. And the reason that saves time on our end as well, besides the electronic customer file, but you'll see this in a bit when we go to the site, but we have to open each of those uploads before we can take action. So our system will not let us do anything with the package until we have opened every document. So when there's only 7, that expedites the process on our end. So I'm just going to do a quick overview of how RD looks at this, and then we'll go to the site and actually see an application. So from the field office perspective, when you submit that package, as Lacey said, you'll get an email. RD staff also get an email. So when RD staff get an email, they're going to know to log into eForms, and then they're going to go to their inbox. And they're going to see a new package. Once they click on that package and open that 410-4, it's going to move to pending. So a pending package is a package that has been opened by RD, but no action has been taken to accept it or reject it or return it. Or a new package has not been opened by RD. So when you see that new or pending status, that's what that means. So what they do is they click on the package and they'll open it and they start looking at those documents. What they're going to compare that to is the attachment 3A, the phase 1. So they're going to make sure that you're submitting all the documents in accordance with that phase 1 cover letter. The phase 1 does also include the 3J, attachment 3J. And if you're not familiar with what that is, if you go to our handbook, that is the documents that an applicant would provide to support their loan. So paycheck stubs, asset verification, those documents. So those are the documents that come from the applicant. Those are included in that phase 1. The rest of the information in that phase 1 is going to be all the documents that the packager prepares. Your loan narrative, your computing income and assets. So they're going to look at that in accordance with that phase 1 to determine what action to take. And the actions that we can take is accept, redirect, or return the package. And we'll talk about those on the next slide and exactly what they mean. But an accepted package is sent to Unify for parsing. And what that means is the information that you have entered in that 410-4 transfers over to our Unify system, which is our underwriting system. So for the underwriting system, it recognizes the information in that 410, like the name, the address, the social security number, so that RD staff is not entering that manually. So it's not entered twice. It's just entered on your end and it automatically transfers on our end. Some common errors that might affect this or prevent this from transferring from one system to the other is if you don't use the 410-4 that's within eForms, you get a 410-4 from somewhere else, or you have an older version, that can prevent that from transferring from eForms over to Unify. If you incorrectly check a box, if you have an applicant but you don't have a co-applicant, and you incorrectly check a box on the co-applicant side, that causes an error in the transfer of information from eForms to Unify, because it recognizes that information, that checkbox, as there should have been a name there. There should have been some additional information. So it kind of sees a phantom co-borrower. And then if you enter dashes in the social security number, just be sure to enter numerical numbers, because entering dashes causes that transfer to drop the last two numbers in the social security number. Our staff go in and look at the application and make sure that what's on the 410-4 is what carried over into Unified before they process a credit report or anything like that, to make sure that social security number matches. But on your end, you can help that and kind of expedite that process just by making sure not to use a dash when you enter that information. Just use numerical numbers. And lastly, using punctuation. For example, typing RD period versus road. That can cause an error when that information is transferred over. On our end, it kind of pops up and we have to do some additional manual steps there. So if you just type out road, that prevents that error from occurring as well. So accept, redirect, or return. These are the actions that rural development can take on your package. We talked about accept. That's where we have reviewed it. Everything in accordance with the phase one is uploaded and we're ready to go. So we accept the package. You'll get an email notification that your package has been accepted. Redirect is where RD internally redirects that package to another site location. So one thing I want to point out is before you submit your first package, or if you haven't submitted one in a while, reach out to your state office or your local RD office, open lines of communication just to make sure you're submitting to the correct location. And that's because some states are centralized and they want you to submit to one site location. And then they internally redirect that package out to where it needs to be processed. Or that central location is responsible for actually getting it from eForms over to electronic customer file before assigning it to an underwriter. So you've got a couple of different situations there, or you have a non-centralized state where it's based on where the applicant's located or going to be located. So it depends on your state and how they process. So you want to make sure before you submit that first package, just reach out to them to make sure you're submitting to the correct location. That way, there's no delay in the process. And then you will get an email when if your package does get redirected, you'll get an email on that as well, notifying you that your package has been redirected and what site location that was redirected to. And then return. When an application package is returned, and this was one of the questions, you will get notification in an email notifying you that the package was returned, and the email is going to tell you exactly what was missing from that package. So when RD reviews it, this next slide here shows you, once we review it, if we're going to return it, we're required to enter in this box what was missing from the package. So it will not let us move forward without entering information in there. So when you get that email, it should give you very specific details on what was missing from the package. So you can correct that and then resubmit your package. So I'm going to stop the PowerPoint, and I'm going to share my screen. All right, and so we've got a package here. This is actually going to be a different one than she submitted, just because this is the actual test site versus the live site. But it does come in here. The employee would just log into eForms, and they're going to click on their inbox. So when they log in, they're actually going to see the same thing that you would see for browsing forms. But they're going to click on their inbox, and you can see that it's got that same confirmation number, and then it's got package originator, which is the submitter. So it's going to show your name as the submitter. So if you've submitted 3 applications, all 3 applications are going to have your name because it's tied to that e-authentication ID. And again, you can see here some of these are pending, which means they have been opened, but no action's been taken. And some of these are new, so that you can tell nobody has opened this package. So I'm just going to click on the package here. And this application, again, is in accordance with the stacking order checklist that we talked about. And you can see that I've only had to upload, 7 documents versus, 20 documents. On your side, you have to go through the upload process, put in that description. So you're saving some time there. On our end, if I click return here, it won't let me do anything because it says I've not reviewed the package. So I have to open each one of these before it will let me take any kind of action. And that includes redirecting. So if you're in one of those centralized states and they're going to redirect your package, the person that receives it has to open each of the documents before they can redirect it to another site location. So that process is just expedited when we only have to open those 7 documents. So another point that rural development is going to look at is you see this SAM test. This is my 410-4. That's just the applicant's name, and it just depends on how you've named it. You can name it whatever or leave it 410-4. But what I'm looking at as rural development is I'm looking at this actions column has got this icon. If this icon is here, that tells me that information is correct, that it will parse from Unify or from eForms to Unify. So that tells me that is the correct version of the form, and we're not going to have any problems in it being an older version or something like that. So for my 410-4, I have to click on hit and open it. And it does take just a few minutes to open on our end. And you can see I'm going to scroll down through here and I'm going to look at things just to make sure, that I've got a complete application, that, it's not just the name or it's been submitted blank. That's one of the common problems is they submit a handwritten version of the 410-4 and don't fill out the one in eForms, and they just upload a blank one. And that it defeats the purpose of the process. The purpose is to expedite, to streamline processing. And so we would return a package if it's blank here. So we want to make sure that, you're filling out this information. So I just do a quick scroll through to make sure my 410-4 is complete. What I was talking about before about the Social Security number, you can see it's got dashes in it because it's formatted that way. But it as a numerical number, because when I click on it, I can see the whole Social Security number and there's no dashes. If there was dashes in there, it would look the same and it would show me the dashes. So I can actually see that. So I can click on it and it's got the dashes in there. That's going to remove the last 2 digits, the 22 from moving over into Unify. So just make sure just to enter a numerical number in that and not enter those dashes when you, even though it does format that way, it's the way the system reads it that makes the difference. So again, I just kind of scroll through here. Rural development does accept this as a signed 410-4. So you're only required to submit this version. It does not have to be signed or anything like that. This is considered a signed application. So I just make sure that, the information is complete all the way down. And then I would just close this out and it returns me back to eForms. From that point, I have to open each one of these. This is going to be the worksheet for computing income. And that's taken just a second to open. All right, so that's the worksheet for computing income. Now, the one in here is just a test one, so it's just uploaded blank, but I would scroll through that just to make sure that, the information is complete. I'm not actually checking at this point as far as underwriting goes. I'm checking to make sure the information is complete. So was the 4A for the income here complete? Was the maximum loan calculator complete? And that's basically the two things that I look at. You as the packager can use this 1944-61 just as a guide. You're not required to complete that. So I'm not going to check to make sure you've completed it because it's not required. It's just the first two tabs that you should be completing. Or if you have a cosigner, you would complete that. But that one's just for informational purposes. And then I would open each one of these documents again. And these are just test documents, but your loan narrative, I would kind of read through that because it's going to tell me some things about the file, right? So it's going to tell me if due to COVID, the applicant was off from work for 30 days. The letter of explanation should be in there. So those kinds of things I'll pick up from the loan narrative when I go into income and credit and assets to make sure that the file's complete. So I just continue along that process. Again, I have to open each one of these to take any kind of action. I would just go through here. If this applicant is employed, I'm going to look for pay stubs that cover a 30-day period. I'm going to look for a tax return. And, if there's Social Security or something like that, I would look for a benefit statement just to make sure that the income that you're telling me that the income on the 4A, that you've got supporting documentation for that. And then for the credit, I would open up the credit. And again, this is where you can upload that copy of that voided check because if it's a check, we can process that electronically. If it's a money order, or a cashier's check or something like that, you would have to actually mail that in. But we can process now just strictly based off a copy of a voided check. So that's where you would upload that with a credit. Any letters of explanation on the credit, I would be looking for that. And again, I'm going to compare that to what you've told me in the loan narrative. You've told me that, they had some credit issues in the past. It was maybe due to medical. So I'm going to look for that letter of explanation. So I would just scroll through, making sure, that all the documents that you've indicated should be there are there. And then, assets, same thing. I'm just going to look to make sure that all the documents according to the 410-4, if they've said they have 4 bank accounts, I have, bank statements for that covers 2 months of bank statements for each account. So I would scroll through to make sure all the information is there. And then the last is going to be your 3550-1 and your 3550-4. Now the 3550-1 and 3550-4, those do have to be signed, actually signed by the applicant. So those would be copies that you upload. But the 410-4 does not actually require a wet signature. The 410-4 submitted through eForms is considered signed on our end. And then I would just make sure, in accordance with the application, the 3J and the phase 1 cover letter, that all the information in this section is here. And at this point now I can take action. Again, we can accept, redirect, or return. Lacey mentioned comments. So comments are right here. You have to click on comments to view any comments. And then if I'm a rural development employee, I can also look at the history. So if this application was returned and resubmitted, that information is going to tell me, you know, what's the history of this file. It also tells me what employee took action on it as well. So it tells me that as well. So now that I have looked at all that, I can, if I'm going to return it, we talked about that where they can return the application and I've got to give you a reason. So it will not let me continue past this point without giving you a reason. So as an employee, I've went through everything and I've looked at the package, and you're missing pay stubs, you're missing bank statements. I'm going to put that in here, and I'm just going to say the package was missing, bank statements and pay stubs. So when you get your email, it's going to tell you that. It's going to give that specific description in the email. When we talked about the redirect, again, you want to reach out, communicate with your local office or the state office for your state. Make sure you're submitting in accordance with the way the state does their processing. Some states are centralized, so you'll submit to one central location. Other states are processed by field offices in accordance with location. So you would submit to that field office. So it just depends on how that state's structured. But this process is the same as the one Lacey went over, where I can go in here and I can pull up the map to redirect this, and I can click on a state and drill that down to the different counties. One thing I did want to point out is this text version. If you're not, completely familiar with that area, which if you're local, you're going to be, but if for some reason you can't find the county or whatever, you can go to this text version. And when you click on the text version and you click on the state, it gives those counties in alphabetical order. So that's can be like a little quick way to do that if you're having trouble finding it on that map. And then you can see we changed to pending. But now I can accept this package. And when I accept this package, it is going to go over to Unify. Now, the documents that go over to Unify is just going to be this one that has this actions icon. So it's just the information here. So all this other I've got to download and then get it over to my electronic customer file. But when I say accept the package, that means I've reviewed it for completeness. That does not mean that the application has been determined approved. Those are two different things. At this point, we're just reviewing it for completeness, and then it will go into underwriting for determination of approval or denial of the application. So those are two different things, and I just wanted to point that out so no one knows what accept means. But after this process ends here, at that point, you're going to get an email telling you the package has been accepted, and then it's going to enter into underwriting, and you would be looking at working with the underwriter. The phase 2, which is mentioned in the attachment 3A, that is not completed in eForms. Phase 2 is sent via email, and phase 2 is going to be your contract and anything, home inspection, things like that for that second part once they find a home. But the first part would be in eForms, that phase 1. So the attachment 3A has all that information. It outlines kind of this process for packaging, and I actually have that open. Do you see the attachment 3A?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Sometimes Teams, it depends on what screen you're sharing as to whether it switches or not. But the attachment 3A just comes out of chapter 3 of the handbook, and it's got the information on how this packaging process works. And then it talks about the phase 1. And if I scroll down here to page 8, it talks about this, everything that's in the 3J, and then everything else. This is what comes from your applicant, the attachments 3J, or 12E for 504. And then the rest of this is going to be what you're going to complete as a packager, and you're going to submit this other information as part of your package. That's what we're going to review to determine whether or not this is complete, whether we're going to accept it or return it back to you. And with that, that's all that I have. I'm going to stop sharing, and we'll take any questions that you may have.
Okay. Thank you, Ashley. And a very important part that Ashley had just said was accepted is not approval. So you're still going to be pending, waiting approvals from the underwriter. I know that was definitely one of those things that everybody was concerned about. And understand, I think, Ashley, right, that when it gets to the underwriter, you may have to provide additional documents.
Yeah. So if when it gets to underwriting, and I did the initial review in eForms and it looked like everything was correct, but turns out something has changed, or yeah, I had missed something that should have been submitted. Yeah, there still could be a chance that that you'll get some information, requested information from that office. But it should be something that's listed in that phase 1 or that attachment 3J. So if your goal is to make sure your package is accepted and moving forward, just make sure you have everything with the attachment 3J or the phase 1. But yeah, they could reach out. Typically what they're going to do is they're going to send a handbook letter 11 to the applicant, and they're going to CC you a copy of that. And then you as the packager would contact the applicant and say, hey, you've got this letter from Rural Development. We need these items. Let's go ahead and get those in, so that we can make sure that there's no delay in our process.
Right. And that's important as well. And the other thing I know that was brought up was that that don't send, like when you ask for 2 months of bank statements, don't send a year's worth of bank statements. Don't send extra information.
Right. Yeah. So you want to send what's in the regulations. If there's something out of the ordinary that you want to note, put that in your loan narrative. But yeah, you want to stick to what's required in the handbook, and you want to stick to make sure that we're treating all applicants the same. If we're asking for 30 days worth of pay stubs in the handbook, that's what you should submit, is 30 days worth of pay stubs. So you want to stick to the actual handbook and what's described in the handbook.
Okay, great. We did have another question. It says, are phone numbers and dates and birth dates, or dates of birth, date sensitive like the Social Security number is, with the hyphen?
So I don't believe so. In our testing, we've not had that problem come up. We did have the problem with the Social Security number. It was rejecting the files when it moved over to Unify. We got that corrected, but it still deletes the last 2 digits. So we haven't seen any problems with the date of birth or anything or the phone number. But the Social Security number becomes very important, and we do know that is a problem. So entering the numeric value only numbers is probably the best route all the way around. We know that that's going to work, and we know that that's not going to be rejected or kicked out of the system.
Okay, thank you. And then we also have another question. It says, how do you obtain permission to utilize the electronic processing as a self-help grantee?
So to actually start the process, you're going to have to sign up for an e-authentication account. And from that point forward, once you have an e-authentication account, then you can start submitting applications as a packager in eForms. So depending on the state, you want to also reach out to the state office and just talk to them, and keep that line of communication open to let them know, hey, I've got my e-authentication ID and I'm going to start this process. We want this to be a smooth transition, and let them know that you're going to be going to be submitting that way. But yeah, just make sure to get your e-authentication account and you should be ready to go. And make sure to verify your identity because there is 2 levels of an e-authentication account. The first level is unverified identity. And an unverified identity, I can go into eForms, I can view the form, but I cannot submit a package. So if when you enter eForms and you open the 410-4, you can't import that form or you can't submit that form in any way, then you've not verified your identity. So you have to make sure to verify your identity to get access to submit a package.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any other questions? Need to type in our chat box. Let's see. So she's got any other questions? Because I know there's a lot of moving parts to submitting an application by the eForms, and there's a lot of trial and error that works with that. So maybe it's the time that you might submit one and then just work through what that looks like. And it's like Ashley said and Lacey said as well, the biggest part and the most important part for, I think as well, is to have that line of communication with your local office, whether it be a regional office or the state office, but definitely pick up the phone and start that conversation as well. We also were talking about is also if you're interested in like the step-by-step process of the screenshots, if you would get with like myself or Kelly Cooney, who is also on the call as well from HAC as a housing specialist, and she's been helping moderate either myself or Lacey, and we would get you also copies of the PowerPoint slides as well.
I will point out that on the Rural Development website as well, if you go to that Direct Loan Packagers website, there's a training that kind of does a step-by-step. There's handouts on that, as well as a list of point of contacts for eForms for each state, so that you can contact that state office or that eForms point of contact specifically about this process. So all that's available on that Direct Packagers website. It's also got some trainings on calculating income. It's got trainings on becoming a certified packager. So all that information is there as well. So
it's a very important site to, as we've said before, is to bookmark and to stay on top of. You can also sign up for emails, and so they would send you any of the new updates as well as whenever new regulations come around as well. So I know I found that very helpful. There's also videos, right, Ashley, that they could actually log in and watch the video.
yes, there is. We're in the process of redeveloping those right now. They're currently available, and I encourage you to go watch them. If you do happen to delay and they're not available, just keep checking back because we are rebuilding that process.
Okay. So we've heard today a lot of tips that are definitely very beneficial to the e-form processing, and we would really like to hear from you. So you will also be getting an email that would ask for you to evaluate this session that you've set in on as well, and a recording of today's webinar along with the slides and reference materials will be posted on HAC's website in about 1 week. So definitely stay up with that as well. And then Ashley just shared as well the Rural Development site, if you're not familiar with that, to be able to go in and to view material as well. So like I said, we definitely want to hear back from you. And if you're looking for some, a step 2 to this or another process, definitely let us know. Let us hear from you because that's what we want to know. So we're here to help you out as well. So definitely thank you for the first virtual peer session that we've had because of COVID, but we would definitely, like I said, always like to hear from you. And so thank you from Housing Assistance Council, and thank you, Ashley and Lacey. You've been awesome. So if you have any other questions, just let us know or email us and get with us. Thank you.